We begin today's Satsangh with a prayer by Sapna Ganesh.
Dakshinamurtisarambham Shankaracharya-madhyamam Ramanacharya-paryantam Vande Guru-paramparam Vande Guru-paramparam Vande Guru-paramparam Shuklam Bharadaram Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarva Vignopashantaye Angikam Bhuvanam Yasya Vachikam Sarva Vangmayam Aharyam Chandrataradi Tam Namasatvikam Shivam Om Namo Bhagavate Ramanaya. Namo Ramana to everyone.
Namo Ramana. Ekamaksharam Hridi Nirantaram Bhasate Swayam Likhyate Hridaya Kuhara Madhye Kevalam Brahma Matram Hyaham Maham Iti Sakshat Atma Rupena Bhati Hridi Vishamanasa Swam Chinvata Majjata Pavana Chalana Rodha Atmanishto Bhavatvam Deham Mrinmayavat Jadatmakam Aham Buddhirna Tasyastato Naham Tattadabhava Shukti Samaye Siddhatma Sadhavataha Koham Bhavayuta Kuto Varadhiya Drishtvatmanishtatmana Soham Spurtitaya Arunachala Shivaha Purno Vibhati Swayam Soham Spurtitaya Arunachala Shivaha Purno Vibhati Swayam. We proceed with the satsang with the chanting of verses from Upadesha Saram by Ashwini Balaji and Uma Shripati.
Namo Ramana. Karturajnaya prapyate phalam karma kim param karma tajjadam kriti mahodadau patana karanam palamashashvatam gati nirodhakam ishwararpitam nechaya kritam chitta shodhakam mukti sadhakam kaya vagmana karyamuttamam Pujanam japas chintanam kramat जगतईषदी युक्तसेवनम् अष्टमूर्तिवृद्देव पूजनम् उत्तमस्तवादुच्चमन्द्रत चित्तजं जप ध्यानमुत्तमम् आज्यधारया स्रोतसा समम् सरलचिन्तनं विरलतः परम् वेदभावनात् सोऽहमित्यसौ भावनाभिदा पावनी मता भावशून्यसद्भावसुस्थिति भावनाबलात् भक्तिरुत्तमा हृत्स्थले मना स्वस्थता क्रिया भक्तियोगबोधाश्च निश्चितम्। नमो रमण।
Namo Ramana. We go on to Ramananjali Sangeetam, presented by Pratibha Sundaresh, followed by Savitri Krishnan and Jai Shri Ramakrishna.
ಮೂರ್ಖನು ನಾನೆಂದು ಮುಖವ ತಿರುಗಿಸದೆ ತೋರಿಸು ನನ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಕರುಣೆಯನು. ಮೂರ್ಖನು ನಾನೆಂದು ಮುಖವ ತಿರುಗಿಸದೆ ತೋರಿಸು ನನ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಕರುಣೆಯನು. ಕರುಣಿಸು ಗುರುವೇ ಅರಿವಿಗೆ ನಿಲುಕದ ಆತ್ಮಜ್ಞಾನದ ಪ್ರಭೆಯನ್ನು. ಕರುಣಿಸು ಗುರುವೇ ಅರಿವಿಗೆ ಸಿಲುಕದ ಆತ್ಮಜ್ಞಾನದ ಪ್ರಭೆಯನ್ನು. ಮೂರ್ಖನು ನಾನೆಂದು ಮುಖವ ತಿರುಗಿಸದೆ ತೋರಿಸು ನನ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಕರುಣೆಯನು. ಪಾಪಿಯು ನಾನು ಪಾವನ ನೀನು, ಇರುಳು ನಾನು ಜ್ಯೋತಿಯು ನೀನು. ಪಾಪಿಯು ನಾನು ಪಾವನ ನೀನು, ಇರುಳು ನಾನು ಜ್ಯೋತಿಯು ನೀನು. ಅರಸಿ ಬಂದಿಹೆ ರಮಣ ನಿನ್ನನು, ಕಾಯೋ ಗುರುವೇ ನೀನೇ ಈಶನು. ಮೂರ್ಖನು ನಾನೆಂದು ಮುಖವ ತಿರುಗಿಸದೆ ತೋರಿಸು ನನ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಕರುಣೆಯನು. ನಿನ್ನ ಕೈ ಸೋಕಲು ಧನ್ಯವಾಗುವುದಲ್ಲ, ಮಣ್ಣನೋ ದಿಣ್ಣವ ಮಾಡುವೆಯಲ್ಲ. ನಿನ್ನ ಕೈ ಸೋಕಲು ಧನ್ಯವಾಗುವುದಲ್ಲ, ಮಣ್ಣನೋ ದಿಣ್ಣವ ಮಾಡುವೆಯಲ್ಲ. ನೀಲಕಂಠನೆ ಶಿವಗುರು ರಮಣನೆ, ಶಿವನಾಗಿ ಸನ್ನ ಶ್ರುತ ಪಾರಿಜಾತನೆ. ಮೂರ್ಖನು ನಾನೆಂದು ಮುಖವ ತಿರುಗಿಸದೆ ತೋರಿಸು ನನ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಕರುಣೆಯನು. ಎಂತು ನಾ ತೀರಿಸಲಿ ನಿನ್ನಯ ಋಣ, ಅರಿಯದೆ ನಿಂತಿಹೆ ಓ ರಮಣ. ಎಂತು ನಾ ತೀರಿಸಲಿ ನಿನ್ನಯ ಋಣ, ಅರಿಯದೆ ನಿಂತಿಹೆ ಓ ರಮಣ. ದೀನ ಜನಾವನ ಸಂಕಟ ಹರಣ, ನೀನೇ ಇಹ ಪರಗತಿಯೆನಗಿನ್ನ. ಮೂರ್ಖನು ನಾನೆಂದು ಮುಖವ ತಿರುಗಿಸದೆ ತೋರಿಸು ನನ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಕರುಣೆಯನು. ಕರುಣಿಸು ಗುರುವೇ ಅರಿವಿಗೆ ಸಿಲುಕದ ಆತ್ಮಜ್ಞಾನದ ಪ್ರಭೆಯನ್ನು ಮೂರ್ಖನು ನಾನೆಂದು ಮುಖವ ತಿರುಗಿಸದೆ ತೋರಿಸು ನನ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಕರುಣೆಯನು. ನಮೋ ರಮಣ.
एकमक्षरं हृदि निरन्तरं भासते स्वयं लिख्यते कथम् அருணனுதீதனருணகிரி தன்னில் அழகிய ரமணரே ஆரும் அருணாச்சலேஸ்வரே வாரும் சாலை குயிலோசை காலையில் கூவிட்டு சத்குரு ரமணரே வாரும் சாம்பவி பாகரே வாரும் சங்கமோலிருந்தது தாரகை மங்கின இங்கித ரமணரே வாரும் ஈச சுரேஷரே வாரும் கோழிகள் கோவின குருகுகளியம்பின நாடிகையாச்சது வாரும் நள்ளிருளகந்தது வாரும் சின்னங்கள் காக்களும் வேதிகையாத்தன பொன்னகர மணரே வாரும் போதஸ்வரூபரே வாரும் காக்கங்கரைந்தது காலையும் ஆயிற்று நாகாபரணரே வாரும் நஞ்சனி கண்டரே வாரும் கற்பனை ஒழிந்தது கமலங்கள் அலர்ந்தன விற்பன ரமணரே வாரும் வேதாந்த ரூபரே வாரும் முக்குணரகிதரே முக்தி நாடாழ்வோரே சத்குண ரமணரே வாரும் சாந்த ஸ்வரூபரே வாரும் சத்து சித்தானந்த வடிவினை சார்ந்திடும் தத்துவராயரே வாரும் தாண்டவமூர்த்தியே வாரும் இன்ப துன்பம் இல்லா ஏகாந்த மேடையில் அன்புரு கொண்டோரே வாரும் ஆனந்த மோனரே வாரும் ஆனந்த மோனரே வாரும். ஓம் நமோ பகவதே சிவாய.
நமோ ரமண. ஆனந்த மோனரே வாரும். We now have the next song by revathi Shankar.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. We are meditating on the 36th verse of Saddarshanam. Soham vicharo vapuratma bhave sahayyakari paramarganasya स्वात्मैक्य सिद्धौ स पुनर्निरर्थो यथा नरत्व प्रमितिर्नरस्य. So long as we have the idea that the body is the self, the thought that one is the self is helpful for being that. But when one is that, it is as futile as a man repeating, I am a man, I am a man. when I am playing the role of Bhagavan in our ballet, when I hear the name of Arunachala, I practice to lose myself because I am Revathi there. But on stage, when I'm actually doing the role of Bhagavan, I don't say to myself, I am Bhagavan, I am Bhagavan. It happens naturally. Likewise, I don't say always that I am the self, I am the self, once I am in the self. Instead of saying I am the self, I have to be in the self. I have to be the self. I present to you a song written by Bhagavan. Kannada translation of this is done by N.S. Lakshminarayana Bhatta. Music by H.K. Narayana. ಶರಣಾದೆನೋ ನಿನಗೆ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ, ಶರಣಾದೆನೋ ನಿನಗೆ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ, ಶರಣಾದೆನೋ ನಿನಗೆ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ, ಶರಣಾದೆನೋ ನಿನಗೆ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ. ಲೋಕರೀತಿಗೆ ನನ್ನ ಹೊರತಾಗಿ ಬೆಳೆಸಿ, ಯಾಕೆ ಸಾಕಿದೆ ಹೀಗೆ ಮರುಳ ಇವನೆನಿಸಿ, ಹಂಬಲಿಸಿ ಕೂಗಿದರು ನೀ ಬಾರದಿರುವೆ, ಈ ನೋವಿಗಿಂತಲೂ ಸಾವೆ ಮೇಲೆನುವೆ. ಶರಣಾದೆನೋ ನಿನಗೆ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ, ಶರಣಾದೆನೋ ನಿನಗೆ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ. ಎಸೆಯಬಹುದೇ ನನ್ನ ಕಸದ ರೀತಿಯಲಿ, ಅರುಣಾಚಲನೆ ನಿನ್ನ ಅಗಲಿ ಹೇಗಿರಲಿ. ಗಿರಿಯ ಮರೆ ಧರಿಸಿ ನಗುತ್ತಿರುವ ಶಿವನೇ, ಕೊರಗುವಿ ಕಂದನಿಗೆ ತೋರೆಯ ಕರುಣೆ. ಶರಣಾದೆನೋ ನಿನಗೆ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ, ಶರಣಾದೆನೋ ನಿನಗೆ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ. ಗಾಳಿ ನೆಲ ಜಲ ತೇಜ ಅಮಿತ ಆಕಾಶ, ಜೀವಕ್ಕೆ ನೆಲೆಯಾದ ಜಡದ ಆವಾಸ, ಎಲ್ಲವೂ ನೀಯನಲು ನಾನೊಬ್ಬ ಹೊರತೆ, ನಿನ್ನಲ್ಲೇ ಇರುವೆನ್ನ ಏಕೆ ಪ್ರಭು ಮರೆತೆ. ಶರಣಾದೆನೋ ನಿನಗೆ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ, ಶರಣಾದೆನೋ ನಿನಗೆ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ, ಅರುಣಾಚಲ, ಅರುಣಾಚಲ. ನಮೋ ರಮಣ.
ಎಲ್ಲವೂ ನೀನೆನಲು ನಾನೊಬ್ಬ ಹೊರತೆ, says Bhagavan. When everything is you, how can I alone be apart from you? Who can be apart from you? All are in him, in his all-enveloping love. We go on to the reading and sharing by Sri Nandakumar.
Namo Ramana. In this, the book reading segment of our Satsangh, we continue to read from Fresh Discoveries, Western Seekers on Sri Ramana Maharshi, a compilation by our founder president, Sri A.R. Natarajanji. We have been able to complete the account of Shunyata Bhava, and now we are taking up the next account, Living in the Presence of the Infinite by Thelma Rappold. Living in the Presence of the Infinite, Thelma Rappold. Thelma Rappold spent 3 years with Ramana Maharshi, that is 1947 to 1950, at Sri Ramanashramam. In the course of an interview, she has answered some questions about her stay at Sri Ramanashramam. How did you first find your way to the hermitage of Ramana Maharshi? The answer: I went to India with the idea of finding a guru. I landed in Bombay, then traveled all over India until I ended up in Pondicherry, at the center of Sri Aurobindo. It was there that someone said I might like to meet Ramana Maharshi. I said okay, and took one of those wonderful Indian buses. Of course, she is telling sarcastically. On my way to Sri Ramanashramam, Maharishi's hermitage, I found myself in a state of reverie. In this state, I saw the large luminous eyes of Ramana. He just appeared to me as a sort of a dream. So it's not a dream she is having. While traveling, she is having a dream-like condition. I'll read that again. On my way to Ramanashramam, I found myself in a state of reverie. In this state, I saw the large luminous eyes of Ramana. He just appeared to me as a sort of dream. When I actually saw him, my heart pattered, for here was the same face that I had seen in my state of reverie. I was really shocked. I felt I was going to unpack my one little bag and spend the rest of my life at the ashram. That was my first meeting. He opened those eyes, looked at me, and I just melted. You had never seen Ramana before. When you finally saw him, was it exactly as you had seen him on the bus? That's right. That is what made it so shocking. What was it like sitting in Ramana Maharishi's presence? When I sat in Maharishi's presence, I felt that my little ego had slipped someplace, and I opened my heart and let those beautiful waves enter me. I felt willing to accept whatever was offered me. It seemed that the so-called problems I thought I had, they just vanished. I went through a cleansing process. I would think to myself, what am I so concerned about? It doesn't really matter. Nothing matters but who am I? Who is this I? What is this entity? Ramana's presence made me inquire, not intellectually, but deeper. And I was in this awareness. The whole world disappeared, and I was in this wonderful space. It was up to me to absorb it, open to it, and let it become my being. Can you describe what life at Ramanashramam was during an average day in 1948? Life was much the same day after day. We arrived in the hall about 6:30 in the morning and sat in front of the Maharishi, who rested on a couch. The assembled devotees stayed until lunchtime, at which we dispersed to our homes for lunch. We returned to the ashram at a certain hour and stayed there until dinner time. We spent our entire day with Maharishi and absorbed as much of that presence as our little temple would allow, depending on how open we are. It was a very quiet, simple, and beautiful life. Sometimes nothing was said at all, while at other times people asked questions. There was always an interpreter available because Ramana didn't speak English very fluently. His common language was silence. No one actually lived on the ashram grounds. We all had to find our own place outside. Our main reason for being there was to be with Ramana and spend as much time with him as possible. I had to learn to do my own cooking on a little bun burner. I don't know what you would call it here. Others taught me how to survive this kind of rustic life. I would wake at dawn and prepare my noonday meal. I placed the meal in a tiffin carrier, metal food carrier, and placed it on charcoals, so it cooked while I was at the ashram. My entire being was one-pointed to absorb as much presence and teaching as possible. It always amazed me how Ramana sat absolutely quiet and motionless. Yet his eyes were so penetrating. When I had questions, I didn't verbalize them because it wasn't necessary. The questions were answered almost immediately. It was our means of communication. It was a mind-to-mind connection. How did this stay in a remote ashram in the presence of a great sage affect you? When I first met Ramana, I had been looking for someone for a long time. However, that doesn't mean that I had shed my attachments. That was one thing that Bhagavan taught me in the very beginning. You are what you are. Accept it. When the time comes to give it up, do it with grace. That was the first lesson taught to me. And as the years, as much as possible, I recognize that we all choose our suffering because we do not open up and accept what life brings. We don't find out who it is that is experiencing the suffering. I had never, at any previous time in my life, really let go and tried to just be. When we can do this, love just pours out. I had never, at any previous time in my life, really let go and tried to just be. When we can do this, love just pours out. What was it like at Ramanashramam at the time of Ramana's Nirvana? What was it like at Ramanashramam at the time of Ramana's Nirvana? At the moment of Ramana's passing, we were gathered. It was as though one was aware of the essence leaving his body. A comet appeared in the sky the very moment he left his body, just when everyone was weeping and wailing. You couldn't imagine all the sorrow. I felt a great loss, even though I knew only the physical body had gone. He must have been suffering, yet during his illness, his eyes never lost their luminosity. It was as though Bhagavan's body and his essence were two separate things. He just ignored the body and its suffering. Various doctors came to try and cure him of the malignant sarcoma, but without results. The tumor just continued to grow and grow, but he was the awareness apart from the physical body. Immediately after his passing, it was as though a great magic wand had been waved over the entire congregation. You could have heard a pin drop. There wasn't a sound. It was as though everyone present was engulfed in peace. And Ramana was still sitting in front of us and pouring out love, beauty, and calmness. I'll read that again. What was it like at Ramanashramam at the time of Ramana's Nirvana? At the moment of Ramana's passing, we were gathered. It was as though one was aware of the essence leaving his body. A comet appeared in the sky the very moment he left his body, just when everyone was weeping and wailing. You couldn't imagine all the sorrow. I felt a great loss, even though I knew only the physical body had gone. He must have been suffering, yet during his illness, his eyes never lost their luminosity. It was as though Bhagavan's body and his essence were two separate things. He just ignored the body and its suffering. Various doctors came to try and cure him of the malignant sarcoma, but without results. The tumor just continued to grow and grow. But he was the awareness apart from the physical body. Immediately after his passing, it was as though a great magic wand had been waved over the entire congregation. You could have heard a pin drop. There wasn't a sound. It was as though everyone present was engulfed in peace, and Ramana was still sitting in front of us, pouring out love, beauty, and calmness. The last question and answer by this account. What is your experience of Ramana's presence now? I felt I had found my true home and teacher. It was as if I had lived several lifetimes in those few short years that I was with him. The person who came to him in the beginning was not the person that left. I had grown so much and I had understood about the power to open locked doors within me. I felt I had found my true home and teacher. It was as if I had lived several lifetimes in those few short years that I was with him. The person who came to him in the beginning was not the person that left. I had grown so much and I had understood about the power to open locked doors within me. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. That peace is the peace which Bhagavan enters every one of his devotees. That is the purpose of his advent. And despite the sorrows that we experience, the pain that we experience, he remains as the underlying peace. And he keeps revealing to us how to unlock the door to get back to this peace. He keeps revealing to us his path of self-inquiry, which he has given to us from his great love that each one of us should experience and abide in that state. Dilip Sinha will conduct the session of self-inquiry for us.
Namo Ramana. Hridaya kuhara madhye kevalam brahmamatram yahamahamiti saksha atmarupena bhati Hridi vishamanasasvam Chinvata majjatava Pavana chalanarodha Atmanishto bhavatvam. We'll commence today's evening Atma Vichara by listening to Bhagavan's Upadesham. As usual, I'll be reading from Guru Vachaka Kovai, and the chapter which Bhagavan has blessed us for meditation is meditation on the truth, and the topic which he has blessed us is Jiva Bodha. Verse 632. When the Jiva, turning back and returning along the way it came, enters the source, it will drown completely in its intrinsic nature. And in so doing, as the bliss of its own nature manifests clearly within its own understanding, it will abide motionless in that state. I repeat, when the Jiva, turning back and returning along the way it came, enters the source, it will drown completely in its intrinsic nature, and in so doing, as the bliss of its own nature manifests clearly within its own understanding, it will abide motionless in that state. From the state where there is no jiva, no world, nothing in that deep sleep, when one wakes up, where does one wake up from? When we look at that, that gives us the way to trace ourselves back to the source. When we inquire, who am I? It makes us get back to that source from which this Jiva Bhava has arisen. And when we inquire and turn our attention to the source, we become aware of our intrinsic nature. We understand that we are the very self where there is no thoughts, no claiming that one is the self, as Revathi read out. There will be a clear understanding by oneself that one is that Sat Chit Ananda. Here and now, one is that very truth, and everything else is Jiva Bhava. Every other assumption, every other thought is only a concept, only an idea. And when we turn our attention thus, and when we understand that what our real nature is, which is forever the Satchidananda, completely thought-free, completely bereft of all the experience that we have in the waking, in the dream, or in the sleep. When we recognize that we are the transcendental truth which we were always, then in that state of motionless state, we will remain, says Bhagavan here. And we will be so engulfed in that motionless state. And that is the true freedom that we are seeking. That is the freedom from all these notions which makes us a limited entity, which makes us have a name and form, which makes us go through the ups and downs of the life, forgetting that intrinsic nature of ours, that Satchidananda nature of ours. This is the snake which rises and makes us forget the rope, the Adhisthana. So Bhagavan has given us this path of Atma Vichara to inquire every thought which makes us to believe the snake to be real by inquiring to whom is this. And when we do so and turn our attention from the snake and try to see what is the basis for this I, by questioning who am I, we reach the Adhisthana, the Satchidananda Swarupa of ours, and by turning our attention to it and abiding in that state with the inquiry of who am I, repeatedly, Bhagavan assures that all the vasanas which rise in the form of thoughts, which rise in the form of this division and take our attention removed in that state of abidance in the self, by repeatedly abiding in the self. And in due course, the mind will gain enough strength to remain in that motionless state of the self itself. Until such time, he asks us to diligently inquire every thought that rises within us. It may be good, bad, ugly, sorrowful, whatever it may be. We should not give reality to a thought which has raised as a snake. Rather, the reality we should understand is our intrinsic nature of Satchidananda and drown more into it. And more we abide in that state with the grace of the Master, with which alone we could have come to this path, with which alone we can practice this path, with which alone we get back to that intrinsic nature. Let us do Atma Vichara for the next 10 minutes. Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana. We go on to the sharing by Sri Venkatesh Deshpande.
Vasudeva Sudam Devam Kansachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Oh. Shantakaram Bhujagashayanam Padmanabham Suresham Vishwadharam Gaganasadrisham Meghavarnam Shubhangam Lakshmikantam Kamalanayanam Yogiradhyanagamyam Vande Vishnum Bhavabhayaram Sarvalokaikanaatham. Oh. So by Bhagwan's grace, we are doing manana on the Bhagavad Gita Sara. We are at verse number 41, which is from the 18th chapter, verse number 61. I request Sapna to kindly chant the verse, please.
Yes, sir. अथ श्रीमद्भगवद्गीता सारः ईश्वरः सर्वभूतानां हृद्देशेऽर्जुन तिष्ठति भ्रामयन् सर्वभूतानि यन्त्रारूढानि मायया ईश्वरः सर्वभूतानां हृद्देशेऽर्जुन तिष्ठति भ्रामयन् सर्वभूतानि यन्त्रारूढानि मायया. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sapna. O Arjuna, the Lord abides in the heart center of all beings and makes them revolve by his elusive power as though they are puppets mounted on a machine. I'll read that again. O Arjuna, the Lord abides in the heart center of all beings and makes them revolve by his elusive power as though they are puppets mounted on a machine. It is the one Lord who is seated in the heart center of all beings that makes them act according to his will. Bhagwan Ramana himself told one of his devotees who asked about free will that without his will, not an atom can move. The entire waking life is a second dream whose drama script has already been pre-written by the Lord. Not a single gesture, nor a dialogue, nor an event can happen unless it is in the pre-written script. But if an actor in the drama, while acting as per the script, is thinking of his wife at his home, no director can detect that. So the only free will is in the mind. While acting out this life drama as per Lord's will, nothing can prevent your thinking of either this world or God. We should utilize this free will. For those not capable of going by self-inquiry, complete surrender to the Lord is the best method. This verse indirectly indicates that as all events in our life are shaped by Lord's will alone, surrender to the Lord is the best alternative to get out of the miseries and sufferings of this life. For seekers who are more mature, Bhagwan Ramana's advises, let the body act as may suit it. Why are you concerned with it? Why do you pay attention to it? Free will and destiny last as long as the body lasts. But wisdom, jnanam, transcends both. The self is beyond knowledge and ignorance. Man owes his movements to another power, whereas he thinks that he does everything himself. Just like a lame man bluffing that were he helped to stand up, he would fight and chase the enemy. His ego owes its origin to a higher power on which its existence depends. Why then prattle, I do, I act, or I function. Find out to whom free will or destiny matters. Abide in it. Then these two are transcended. That is the only purpose of discussing these questions. To whom do these questions arise? Find out and be that peace. So there's a nice example. Quake was one of the first wildly successful multiplayer video games. All the current generation people will know this. Any person would participate in the video game as long as they were connected to the internet. Players were placed in a virtual world where they would form teams with other players from across the world. Players would win points for shooting a member of the opposing team and lose points if they won. The creator of the Quake game had no influence on the outcome of the game other than setting the rules of the game when it was created. Sri Krishna says the same thing, that the universe is like a gigantic video game set in motion by Ishvara. This video game is Maya, also known as Prakriti, which is comprised of the three gunas. By itself, Maya is insentient. It cannot do anything on its own. The eternal essence reflected in Maya adds sentience to Maya. It injects life into Maya by becoming the individual soul, the jiva. In this way, each jiva loses its connection with the essential essence and is stuck in the massive machine, this massive video game known as Maya. So then, how can the jiva liberate itself from this never-ending video game of Maya? Does the jiva have a chance? Is there any such thing as free will? Or are we just slaves of Maya? The clue lies in the fact that Maya is subservient to Ishvara. If we only rely on Maya, if we only spend our lives attached to the material world, we will never have a chance at liberation. But if we direct our efforts towards knowing the true nature of Ishvara, towards contacting Ishvara, there may be a shot at liberation. I'll read this paragraph again. So how can the jiva liberate itself from the never-ending video game of Maya? So they say that this is a never-ending video game of Maya. Does the jiva have a chance? Is there any such thing as free will, or are we slaves of Maya? The clue lies in the fact that Maya is subservient to Ishvara. If we only rely on Maya, if we only spend our lives attached to the material world, we will never have a chance at liberation. And like I said the other day, Swami Chidananda in one of his lectures was saying that we are all in the secular life. We are looking at the world outside, and inside the spiritual thing is asleep. The spiritual world is asleep. There is nothing happening in that. So we are all the time outside looking at this world of names and forms, and nothing is happening there. So Swami Chidananda says that you need to have a balance between the secular life as well as the spiritual life. So if you have this balance, then what happens is slowly, the spiritual, the being that has been sleeping, it has been sleeping inside, it starts waking up. And then once it starts waking up, then you start getting a feel of what the spiritual life is all about. So that's what he's saying here also. If you only rely on Maya, if you only spend our lives attached to the material world, we will never have a chance at liberation. Why we want liberation? Because it is just a upadhi, it is just a covering. It's not true, but we think it is true. But if we direct our efforts towards knowing the true nature of Ishvara, towards contacting Ishvara, there may be a shot of liberation. Shot of liberation means what? That you will be able to get a taste of that silence. You'll get a taste of that Ishvara who is within. Fortunately, he is not in some remote heaven. He is seated within us. How should we approach him? So this is the thing that every sloka says the same thing. Hridaya kohara madhye kevalam brahma matram. All the Gita says that God is within you. But nobody seems to actually believe that. He is seated within you, but that spark, they say that whole light is everywhere and you are that spark. But nobody wants to understand that where is the spark within, because there is nothing to hold inside. There is nothing to, outside you can hold a beautiful car, you can hold a beautiful house, you can hold a beautiful watch or whatever it is, and it seems so true and real. But inside, the spark, what is there to hold? There's nothing to hold. But the important thing is that he is seated within us. So once we understand that bliss, that once you get that taste of that silence within, then all these, like they say in the north, sab phika phika lagega, bahar ka sab phika phika lagega. It'll not taste good at all, because the taste of it's like the bee which collects the honey. It keeps going back to the honeycomb. It keeps going back. Why? Because it likes that taste. So similarly, once you taste that silence, once you taste the self within, you will not go out, and you will realize that this is just a film show that is going on you, the consciousness, and you will not be interested in a film show, because film show is there today and film show will not be there tomorrow. So important thing is you will always be with the self. So that may Bhagavan and Sri Krishna give us the right buddhi to be able to be with the self and see where he is seated within us.
Namo Ramana. We continue with the sharing from Dr. Kalarani Rangaswami.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Arunachalamena Agame Ninippavar Agattai Veraruppai Arunachala. Namo Ramana to all. We are meditating on Devi Kalatra Jnana Vichara Padalam, very graciously given to us by Ramana. And in the last satsang we saw Antamilla Atyanta Anandam, the happiness that we get while the mind abide in the self is Atyanta Anandam. That happiness is incomparable with any of the other worldly happiness that is being experienced through senses. This endless Ananda cannot be destroyed, and Jnani will be in that state always. And the next stanza, Bhagavan says, Yenda karmamum il. To be in that state of that Ananda, or we need to do any karma. Am I supposed to take any strain for that? No, absolutely not. If one does something and try to get Ananda, there will be ego and will be saying, I am the doer. Even in bhakti, ego will be there. Once, a great sage poet of Tamil Nadu, Thiruvalluvar, went to his disciple's house. His disciple was now grown to be a very rich person. When he went to his house, that disciple was very busy doing his puja. So his servant asked Thiruvalluvar to sit outside in the portico, as the puja will take a very long time. At least after 2 hours, he came out, and when he saw his guru, he got thrilled and did Shashtanga Namaskaram to him. And said, I am really sorry. I did not know that you were here. when did you come, Guruji? My puja will take a very long time. Thiruvalur actually can visualize what is happening in the three worlds. Once in Kailasha, Vishnu, Brahma, Lakshmi, Saraswati, Devendra and all devas, including Nandi, all were witnessing the Tandavam of Shiva and Parvati and all appreciated the performance. The Shiva asked everyone, did any one of you noted something odd in my today's performance? All said no. It was simply extraordinary. We didn't see anything odd. Shiva said, then go to Bhulogam. There will be a saint, Thiruvalluvar, in the down south. Ask him about it. He will say. All were very anxious to know what happened in the performance that they missed it. So they all gathered in front of his ashram. And when Thiruvalluvar, they all asked whether he knew about the performance of Shiva and Parvati that held in Kailasha. Thiruvalluvar very anxiously said, yes, I do enjoy the performance and also witnessed the action of Shiva. What is that? What is that? All asked. That is what his earring fell down while he was dancing, and without stopping the dance, how graciously he took the earring from the floor with his fingers in the foot and wore it with his foot itself. I really enjoyed that. All were stunned. We actually witnessed the performance directly sitting in Kailasha, and we did not notice this. But a human being in Bhuloka may be a saint, but he noticed it. How great he is, reported this to Shiva. Such is the greatness of Thiruvalluvar. Can't he know what the disciple was thinking while he was doing the puja? But he still said, oh, it's okay. Just I wanted to meet you, that's all. Leave it. But the disciple was very stubborn to know how long his guru waited for him to see him. So he said, I used to take a very long time to do puja. He also wanted to convey his Guruji that he will take a long time to do puja. And that is why I am asking you, when did you come? Now, Thiruvalluvar said, oh, I came when you were praying, Ishvara, please do something to get my money back from that textile merchant. The disciple got so ashamed and recognized that he did not concentrate on puja, and he became a staunch follower of Thiruvalluvar after that. The great poet sage Kavya Kanta Ganapati Muni did penance right from his very young age. With the result, he mastered all Vedas and was a great scholar who chanted Om Namah Shivaya 100 times. Even after doing all these, he did not get peace that he aspired for. In that stage only, Muni came to Bhagwan and asked him, can one get mukti doing mantra japa? Bhagwan, with his gracious look, said, see from where that mantra dhvani comes from, find its source. Where is the source? And when that is found, mind gets leenam there itself. That is tapas. Ganapati was overjoyed that he could realize the truth. For this, what he did nothing. Summa ire, be quiet. Thiruvalluvar also beautifully says, Ennayirathanda yogam iruppinum kannaramudanai kandarivarillai. Doing tapas for many thousand years is not going to fetch one the darshan of God. Then what should one do? Do nothing. Ulnadi ulle olibara nokir kannadi por kalandu nindrane. Just turn the mind inward, and when seen, we get merged in itself. Like what? Like the image getting merged in the mirror. In that merger arise the Atyanta Ananda, which is endless. It is not like the worldly happiness, which comes and goes. Bhagwan says, when one enjoys that Atyanta Ananda that he gets from that Parameswar who would come out of it. அப்பரத்தில் கற்றனவாம் யார்தான் இரமிட்டான் நீ இசை. Parameswara beautifully says, normally how much we have to do to attain worldly happiness? Why do we earn money to enjoy happiness? How much strain we take to earn that money? Do the money give us permanent happiness? To earn fame, how much strain one has to take? To get good name, one has to strain a lot to prove himself. After doing all this, the happiness that we get out of all these strain is not going to last long. Is that not so? But if without doing anything, simply by abiding in the self, one gets that endless Antyanta Anandam. How can a staunch sadhaka will leave that Anandam without tasting it and remain there itself enjoying it? Hey Parvati, please tell, says, ask Parameshwar. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. We continue the satsang with the sharing by Ujjwal Jagadish.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Gurave Namaha Sadgurave Namaha Tarakaraye Namaha 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 Gurave Namaha Gurave Tarakaraye Gurave Tarakaraye Gurave Tarakaraye Gurave Tarakaraye Paradeshineva Dhavalena Vasasah Shakalena Veshtita Kati Vishobhina Varadeshikena Naraveshadharina Shikivahanena Guru Majjagat Bhavet Gurave Tarakaraye Gurave Tarakaraye Guruve Tarakaharane Guruve Tarakaharane Yatiyagi Tiruguva Arunagiri Vasane Yatiyagi Tiruguva Arunagiri Vasanu Bilitundu Batteyanu Dharisi Jwalipanu Guru Shreshta Muruti Naravesha Dharisihanu Navileri Davaniga Navileri Davaniga Navileri Davaniga Dareya Pureya Lilidihanu Guruve Tarakaharane Guruve Tarakaharane. Ganapati Muni, in this verse of Ramana Chatvarimshat, praises Ramana as Subramanya. Subramanya, who has come in the human form only to be a teacher, a world teacher, a master to the whole world. And who is he? He is none other than the Shiki Vahana, the one who rides on the peacock. And he is the very one who destroyed the Taraka, who embodies all the ignorance, all the darkness. He has come to destroy the darkness, and he has come to reveal his truth as the world teacher. I recently read a conversation which is documented in Day by Day with Ramana, where the devotees are wondering, should we call ourselves as disciples of Ramana, or should we call ourselves as devotees of Ramana? Devotees means if we consider Ramana as Bhagavan, as the Subramanya Swarupa, then we are all devotees to that Supreme Lord. So we should call ourselves as devotees. But we know that Ramana himself never proclaimed that he is the Guru. He never proclaimed that he has disciples around. So they were doubtful whether we can call ourselves as disciples of Ramana. And in the conversation, Ramana says, the truth is that when a seeker, when a bhakta finds himself caught in bondages, then he feels weak and he suffers in that weakness, in this bondage, and he turns towards the Supreme and he prays to the Supreme, "Oh Supreme, please come and save me." And when he is full of this devotion and praying the Supreme to come and help, then he starts seeing Supreme in everything. His whole world becomes Shivamayam, or filled with Ishvara. At that point of time, the very self, the very Ishvara embodies himself as the Guru in the human form. And when he comes in the human form, he reminds us, he comes into the lives of the devotees and he reminds us, get back to your own self within. And when with that instruction from the Guru, when the devotee turns within and finds the true self, at that point of time, the devotee realizes that the self that is shining within and the self that is shining as the Guru in the human form and also the Supreme who envelops the whole universe is one and the same power. That truth is realized by the divine grace of Sadguru. When a little girl was visiting Ramana with her father, and that little girl wondered, "Appa, why is everybody falling at the feet of this person? He just looks like any other human." And the father says, "Yes, my dear child, he alone is human. We are all caught up in our daily mundane activities. We have not realized what is the true purpose of being human." But Ramana here, the Bhagavan here, he alone has lived his life and attained the purpose of the human life. He has attained the supreme truth and he is ever abiding in that truth which is shining as the self. So he is the only human. We are all just animals. And Tulsidas also says the same thing. We have got this human birth after a cycle of 84 lakhs janmas. And if we are only khaya, piya, sukase, soya, inume kyare kamaya. If we are losing this opportunity that we have got as human, wasting our time only khaya, eating and drinking and sleeping, what is the use? What is the profit that you have gained? And the purpose of this human life is to gain the true profit of self-abidance. And that the Ramana has come into our lives in the human form and he is teaching us this very truth. And he is none other than the Shiki Vahana, the one who rides on the peacock. He is Subramanya. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as a self in all beings. We are meditating on the Ramana Ashtottara Shatanama by Vishwanatha Swami. And we were meditating on the Nama Kamaniya Sucharitraya Namaha. One whose life is pure, one whose life is purifying and beautiful. And in that Nama, Vishwanatha Swami actually encapsulates the whole of Bhagavan's life. And then after that, he goes on to the boyhood. And then the Bhagavan's getting the what we call the enlightenment, and then he's coming to Arunachala, and later he's living in Virupaksha Guha, he's living in Skandashrama, his Upadesha, and all these are covered as part of the Ashtotra. But this Nama, it says Kamaniya Sucharitraya Namaha. In another satsang, Nandakumarji was reading out to us the recollections of N.R. Krishnamurti about Bhagavan. How Bhagavan's life, even Bhagavan's daily conduct, revealed the beauty of his life. How he would always be spotlessly clean, how he would complete every task, how he would never speak ill of anyone, how he would always speak the truth but refrain from speaking if it would hurt somebody. All these and other beautiful qualities of Bhagavan's life are enumerated by N.R. Krishnamurti Iyer. And one of those qualities of Bhagavan was his great humanness, as Ujjwal just pointed out to us from one incident. About Bhagavan was how he is human, supremely human. It is said of Bhagavan, such was his love for all, and he would be so natural in his expression of love for everyone. If it is an occasion of joy, he was simply there. If it is an occasion of sorrow, then Bhagavan shared that sorrow. We know of an incident where the monkeys lost their head due to somebody actually hit a catapult, and the monkey king, he died, and the entire family came to Bhagavan in grief. And the first thing which Bhagavan told them was that, you see, this is something which is inevitable. The body, when it is born itself, it is destined to go one day. This is inevitable, he told them. And then after that, he also shared their grief. He said, the person who is responsible for giving you this grief will also suffer, he said. So that much of empathy, that much of oneness, and that much of the sharing or naturalness of the occasion, while pointing out that death is inevitable, he would also share the grief. It was the same thing when HMR brought a telegram saying Chalamal has passed away. Bhagavan shed tears along with HMR. And from within, he alone would have given her the peace to continue whatever service she had to continue in the absence of her daughter as well. And then the grandchild grew up, the grandson came. And their children are all there, all devotees of Bhagavan today, the family. HMR's family, the continuation of her family, of her adopted daughter's family. And that's how Bhagavan has blessed all of them. Sometimes, as it was, Chalamal had to go. But sometimes, Bhagavan does perform a miracle and save a life as well. We do not know his divine plan. Why he allows one to pass on, and why he allows another to continue even in the face of great danger. And Chalamal's son was saved by Bhagavan. His name was Ramanan also. As a young boy, he had a danger in water. And his grandmother had told him, don't go near the water. Don't go anywhere near water. But then, in the temple tank, when his friends were swimming there, and they were teasing him that he was afraid of coming into the water, and a child, you see, he does not like to be teased by his friends. And so, he decided that he too will go for a swim in the temple tank. And he found himself drowning. He did not know how to swim, and he found himself drowning. And suddenly, the face of Bhagavan came before him very bright, in all its fullness. And that's the last he knew. And when he awoke, he was on the steps of the temple tank. People had gathered around him, and they told him one old man came and he rescued you from the water. Because though he was trying to shout for help, I mean, putting up his arms and flailing it seems there is a game also which boys play like that. It is called Arampakar or something like that. So the people around had in first thought did not recognize that he was in need of help. But this old man came as if from nowhere. He saved you and now he is missing, they said. And this young boy Ramanan obviously went home. He dried himself and then quietly after that he went home. And he did not tell HMR anything about his adventure. And the next morning, he went to Bhagwan's hall to do namaskar. And Bhagwan smiled at him and asked him, how deep was the tank? How deep was the tank? He asked him, how deep was the temple tank? So that's how Bhagwan saved him. So we do not know his ways are inscrutable. But for him, as the devotees often say, life, birth and death are all part of that infinite game, that infinite Leela of his. And in that infinite Leela, he decided to play a part too. He decided that he will come and be born at Tiruchirappalli, and he also dropped his body. And when he dropped his body, hundreds were gathered there, and thousands across the world would have felt the great sorrow of losing Bhagavan's physical presence. And yet, as we heard in today's reading also, Bhagavan's presence was felt even then by many, I thought, but according to the report of Thelma Rappold, she says it was like a magic wand waved over everyone. So Bhagavan says in Ramana Gita that at moments of great grief, the mind becomes silent and one can turn within more easily at those points of time by surrendering to the Supreme. And so Bhagavan was that beautiful, natural Bhagavan. And when Kamala, the dog, passed away, what did Bhagavan do? Bhagavan called all her children and the grandchildren, the puppies, all who were all over the Skandashram. He called all of them. There were many of them, obviously. And for that reason, actually, the devotees had not wanted Kamala to be part of the ashram. A female dog, if she is part of the ashram, then all her puppies will also be here, and there will be many, many dogs in the ashram. So they tried chasing Kamala away many, many times. But she never went. She just stayed there. And when she stayed there, finally, they had to accept her. And then Bhagavan looked after her just as a mother would. And when she gave birth the first time to puppies and all, he had her Punya Vachanam done, and then he had the puja on the 11th day, the Namakarana, and he knew all her puppies by name, her children by name, and she had grandchildren also. So they were also known by name and they were in the ashram. And when Kamala finally did pass away, it is said, it is reported that Bhagavan called all her children and grandchildren and he inquired of them. Oh, is it that your grandmother has passed away today? Just as one goes to inquire of our dear ones, he inquired of them. And that is the naturalness with which he approached everything, including the fact of death, the way of inquiring or the way of telling the truth, or the way of sharing with tears, everything was part of that. And that is how his life shines within us from moment to moment in various aspects of that life. And Bhagavan points out to us that in this, everything is temporal, everything will pass. It happened even that there was plague when Bhagavan was there at Tiruvannamalai. Twice there was plague. Once Tiruvannamalai was completely evacuated and Bhagavan stayed at Pachayamman Kovil. He did not go. There were the police who came there to look after to safeguard the town, because the town had been evacuated. And then after that he went even to their celebration. When they were to leave, they wanted Swami to come to the celebration. And he said, I never knew that such a celebration would mean such a celebration. But there was a dais and there was a stage put on the dais for him, and he said, having gone there, it was too late for me to go away. And he sat on the dais for some time and watched all their celebrations and then came away. And he said they were having a huge dinner party also after that. That was one experience. And the second time, Mother Alagamma was also there when there was plague. And one of Bhagavan's devotees at Skandashram, Annamalai Swami, he passed away due to plague. And apparently, Mother Alagamma was very deeply saddened by this. And strangely, at that time, Kunju Swami, not knowing there was plague in Tiruvannamalai, not knowing that it was impossible to reach Tiruvannamalai, somehow got onto some train, and he was informed that he could simply jump off at Tiruvannamalai, and he did that when the train slowed down, and he made his way up to Skandashram. And Bhagavan told Mother Alagamma, you are weeping that you have lost one son, another son has come. So the entire process of life and death is engulfed by Bhagavan in his story, in his life story. So many, and he has himself seen to it that Mudalayar party dropped her body before he dropped his body. He also, Lakshmi, he gave mukti to Lakshmi, he gave mukti to the dog Jackie, to the crow, to Valli the deer. All of them breathed their last in his lap, literally. And after Mudalayar party dropped her body, he felt that, one more responsibility of mine is done. So for him, it is a process of taking us forward step by step. And his beautiful life, as I said, so many things in his life. When children were born also, equally, it was shared with him. And including monkeys would bring their young ones and give them to him. When the monkeys brought, they would bring their babies and they would give the baby to him. And then he would handle that baby and give the monkey child back. And just as the humans do. And they asked him, Bhagavan, how come these wild animals are ready to come and give their young ones to you? Normally, if human beings touch them, they would even reject the baby. And he said, maybe they think I'm one of them. Such was his charitra, the Kamaniya Sucharitra, Sucharitraya Nama, as Vishwanatha Swami says, which is our boat for crossing all the difficulties that we face from day in to day out, small day, which we face day in and day out, small ones, big ones, everything is big at that time for us. Even if we face a small problem, it is big at that time. And a big problem is, of course, big. And all this, he holds our hand and he says, yes, see my life, understand from my life. And here I have lived this life to show you what it means to live in this self all the time and to live in great surrender and total faith in Arunachala. Absolute faith, that faith which drew him from his home in Madurai, that absolute faith. And he lived every moment in that absolute faith that Arunachala knows what is best. And that is what is the underlying lesson or the underlying example that Bhagavan gives to us for us to repeatedly turn back and tell ourselves, Bhagavan knows what is best. Always he knows what is best. And Sadhu Om Swami says in his song, Unnai vida unmel kavale ulla peruman Ramananandru. If you have so much concern for yourself, does not Bhagavan have more concern for you? He does have more concern for us than we ourselves have. And if we realize this, says Sadhu Swami, then all our sadhana is over. And besides, Sadhu Om Swami also says that we do not have to worry about anything. We do not have to worry about coming and going because he is our eternal companion. Ariveda Naranana Gurunada Namo Piriyada Uravana Perumane Namo. He is the eternal companion and his name is our eternal companion. His life is our eternal companion. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. We continue with the chanting of verses from Aksharamanamale by Revathi Shankar.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala. Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala. தேடாதுற்றனர் திருவருள் நிதி அகத்தியக்கம் தீர்த்தருள் அருணாச்சலா. தைரியமோடும் மெய்யக நாடையான் தட்டழிந்தேன் அருள் அருணாச்சலா. தொட்டருட்கைமை கட்டிடாய நிதியான் அட்டமாவேன் அருள் அருணாச்சலா. தோடமில் நீ அகத்தோடொன்றி என்றும் சந்தோடமொன்றிட அருள் அருணாச்சலா. நகைக்கிடமில்லை நின் நாடியாய் என்னை அருள் நகையிட்டு பார் நீ அருணாச்சலா. நானிலை நாடிட நானாயொன்றி நீ தாணுவார் நின்றனை அருணாச்சலா. நின்னெறி எரித்தென்னை நீராக்கிடுமுன் நின்னருள் மழை பொழி அருணாச்சலா. நீ நான் அறப்புலி நிதங்களி மயமா நின்றிடு நிலை அருள் அருணாச்சலா. நுண்ணுரு உனையான் விண்ணுரு நன்னிட எண்ணலை இருமென்றருணாச்சலா. நூலறிவறியா பேதையன் எந்தன் மாலறிவர் தருள் அருணாச்சலா. நெக்கு நெக்குருகியான் புக்கிட உன்னை புகழ் நக்க நான் நின்றனை அருணாச்சலா. நேசமில் எனக்குன் ஆசையை காட்டி நீ மோசம் செய்யாதருள் அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா. நமோ ரமணா.
Namo Ramana. We conclude with Ashtotra Puja to Bhagavan at Palaputtu, our South Bangalore Center, by Nandakumarji, and the chanting will be by Vaibhavji, Prarthana, Uma, and Ashwini, and Revathi will be concluding with the Aarti song.
नमो रमणा. भारद्वाज विश्वनाथ विरचितं श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तर शतनामावलिः अपार सच्चित् सुखवारिराशे यस्योमि मात्रं भुवनं समस्तं गुहाहितं तं रमणं गभीरं चिन्ताविहीनं हृदि चिन्तयामि. महासे नमः सेन जाताय नमः. ओम श्रीरमणाय नमः. ओम गुरवे नमः. ओम अखंड संविदाकाराय नमः. ओम महौजसे नमः. ओम कारणोद्भवाय नमः. ओम जगद्हितावताराय नमः. ओम श्री भूमिनाथस्थलोस्थिताय नमः. ओम पराशर कुलोत्तंसाय नमः. ओम सुंदराय तपःफलाय नमः. ओम कमनीय सुचारित्राय नमः. ओम सहायाम्बा सहायवते नमः. ओम शूणाचल महोलीन मानसाय नमः. ओम स्वर्णहस्तकाय नमः. ओम श्रीमद्द्वादशान्त महासळे लब्ध विद्योदयाय नमः. ओम महाशक्ति निपातेन प्रबुद्धाय नमः. ओम परमार्थ विदे नमः. ओम तीव्राय नमः. ओम पितृपदान्वेषिणे नमः. ओम इंदुमौलिना पितृमते नमः. ओम पितुरादेशतः शोणशैलं प्राप्ताय नमः. ओम तपोमयाय नमः. ओम उदासीनाय नमः. ओम महायोगिने नमः. ओम महोत्साहाय नमः. ओम कुशाग्रधिये नमः. ओम शान्तसंकल्प संरम्भाय नमः. ओम सुसंद्रशे नमः. ओम सवित्रे नमः. ओम स्थिराय नमः. ओम तपक्षपित सर्वांगाय नमः. ओम पुल्लाम्बुज विलोचनाय नमः. ओम चंद्रिकासितहास श्रीमण्डिकानन मंडलाय नमः. ओम चूतवाक्यां समासीनाय नमः. ओम चूर्णिकाखिल विभ्रमाय नमः. ओम वेद वेदांत तत्त्वज्ञाय नमः. ओम चिन्मुद्रिणे नमः. ओम त्रिगुणातिगाय नमः. ओम विरूपाक्ष गुहावासाय नमः. ओम विराजत चलाकृतये नमः. ओम उदितनयनाय नमः. ओम पूर्णाय नमः. ओम रचिताचलताण्डवाय नमः. ओम गंभीराय नमः. ओम परमाचार्याय नमः. ओम सुप्रसन्नाय नमः. ओम अभयप्रदाय नमः. ओम दक्ष दक्षिणास्य निभाय नमः ॐ धीराय नमः ॐ दक्षिणाभिमुखाय नमः ॐ स्वराजे नमः ॐ महर्षये नमः ॐ भगवते नमः ॐ ईड्याय नमः
ॐ भूमविद्या विशारदाय नमः ॐ विमलाय नमः ॐ दीर्घदर्शिने नमः ॐ आप्ताय नमः ॐ ऋजुमार्गप्रदर्शकाय नमः ॐ समदृशे नमः ॐ सत्यदृशे नमः ॐ सत्याय नमः ॐ प्रशान्ताय नमः ॐ अमितविक्रमाय नमः ॐ सुकुमाराय नमः ॐ सदानन्दाय नमः ॐ मृदुभाषिणे नमः ॐ दयार्णवाय नमः ॐ श्री षोडाचल हृद्भूतस्कन्दाश्रमनिकेतनाय नमः ॐ सद्दर्शनोपदेष्ट्रे नमः ॐ सद्भक्तवृन्दपरिवृताय नमः ॐ गणेशमुनिभृङ्गेन सेविताङ्घ्रिसरोरुहाय नमः ॐ गीतोपदेशसारादिग्रन्थसञ्चिन्न संशयाय नमः ॐ वर्णाश्रममतातीताय नमः ॐ रसज्ञाय नमः ॐ सौम्याय नमः ॐ आत्मवते नमः ॐ सर्वावनिमतस्थानाम् आराध्याय नमः ॐ सर्वसद्गुणिने नमः ॐ आत्मारामाय नमः ॐ महाभागाय नमः ॐ मातृमुक्तिविधायकाय नमः ॐ विनताय नमः ॐ विनुताय नमः ॐ विप्राय नमः ॐ मुनीन्द्राय नमः ॐ पावकोज्ज्वलाय नमः ॐ दर्शनादकसंहारिणे नमः ॐ मौनेन स्वात्मबोधकाय नमः ॐ हृच्छान्तिकरसान्निध्याय नमः ॐ स्मरणाद्बन्धमोचकाय नमः ॐ अन्तस्तिमिरचण्डांशवे नमः ॐ संसारार्णवतारकाय नमः ॐ शोणाद्रीशस्तुतिद्रष्टे नमः ॐ हार्दविद्याप्रकाशकाय नमः ॐ अविच्युतनिजप्रज्ञाय नमः ॐ नैसर्गिकमहातपसे नमः ॐ कमण्डलुधराय नमः ॐ शुभ्रकौपीनवसनाय नमः ॐ गुहाय नमः ॐ दण्डपाणये नमः ॐ कृपापूर्णाय नमः ॐ भवरोगविषग्वराय नमः ॐ स्कन्दाय नमः ॐ देवतमाय नमः ॐ अमर्त्याय नमः ॐ सेनान्ये नमः ॐ पुरुषोत्तमाय नमः।
ॐ श्रीरमण भगवते नमः। श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तरशतनामपूजां समर्पयामि। यस्थाणोररुणाचलस्य पदयोः स्मृत्या जनिं प्राप्यत दिव्यानुग्रहसुप्रवाहविवशस्तादात्म्यभावं गतः निष्ठस्वगभीरनित्यतपसा लोकान् पुनास्येकराट् तस्मै श्रीरमणाय ते नम इदं लोकोत्तरज्योतिषे। नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि दर्शन सुख मंगल मुख सकल जीव हित सम्मुख ब्रह्म संगीये नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि सदा तुष्ट सदा हृष्ट सदा शिवानंद पुष्ट परम महर्षि ब्रह्मनिष्ठसमदर्शी नमो 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 रमण सदाशिवप्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि ನಮ್ಮ ಮನವದೊಂದು ಕಾಡು ನೀನರಿತಿಹೆ ಅದರ ಜಾಡು ಹಿತವನರಿತು ನೀಡು ತೆಮ್ಮ ಕೊರೆಯ ತಣಿಸಲೇ ಬೇಡಲೆಂದು ಬಂದ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿಯೇ ತಣಿವೆವಯ್ಯ ಮೂಡಿಗಾರನೆ ಹಿತವ ನುಡಿದು ಪೊರೆ ನಮ್ಮನು ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಸಂಗಿಯೇ ನಮೋ 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 ರಮಣ ಸದಾಶಿವ ಪ್ರಭಾವರಣ ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ ನಮೋ महर्षि बोलो भगवान श्री रमण महर्षि की जय।